Hope you all enjoyed yourself and very warm welcome to this session. We're certainly hoping as a panel up here that it'll be a unique insight into new distribution, of course including NDC, a topic of the moment of our conference, through the life of the offer and the order. So I'm David, I look after offer distribution for ATPCO, and that includes our content subscriptions. Of course, ATPCO feeds data that powers pricing and shopping, passenger services systems, travel retail, advertising, revenue management, and revenue accounting. So that's my context. I'm joined by my colleagues and my friends next to me, so I hope you'll get a really good view sort of through the life cycle, if you like, from the offer creation side, an airline view, a channel and technology provider, and then finally from ARC's perspective on data and settlement. So I'm joined by Keith, Paul, and Shelley. They will introduce themselves shortly, but we'll each speak for about 5 minutes on our respective contexts, and then we'll take some questions. First of all, that's us. First of all, you will get very used to this disclaimer, so I am going to read it. You will hear it in every session we have today. It's the very important context under which we have these discussions, and it means that you can ask questions through the event app. I'll tell you how to do that in a second. So please excuse me reading through this, just so that we all have the right context. So the purpose of this meeting is to discuss the coding, processing, and standardization of airfare-related data by the airline industry to make the distribution and interpretation of airfare-related data more accurate, automated, and efficient. Participants must conduct themselves in a manner consistent with this meeting's industry-wide pro-competitive mission. Because some, if not all, participants represent companies that compete with one another, we must not engage in conduct that could be perceived as a violation of the antitrust laws or the competition laws around the world. Accordingly, this meeting will not discuss or take action regarding any fare rule or fee, nor will it discuss or take action on remuneration levels of any intermediaries engaged in the sale of passenger air transportation. This meeting also has no authority to discuss or reach agreement on the allocation of markets, division or sharing of traffic or revenues, or the number of flights or capacities to be offered in any market. Discussions regarding such matters or concerning any other competitively sensitive topics, either on the floor or off, are strictly prohibited. Discussing or reaching any agreement related to these topics could expose meeting participants to liability under the US antitrust laws or under the competition laws of other jurisdictions around the world. Further, so the content of this meeting is not misinterpreted, ATPCO requests that participants refrain from any communications concerning that content over social media or other public platforms. Thank you for your attention.
Wow.
That might be the fastest you've heard today, but you heard it here first. I don't think I've ever had applause for disclaimers before, but that's great. It's never been so popular. So, hopefully you're all very used to the event app at this point as well. If you do have a question, we will have a good 20 minutes, I suspect, at the end for your questions. So please keep them coming in. You've got a really good, broad view of the ecosystem here. So we're happy to take those questions. Shelley will moderate those for us from the event app. So without further ado, just to talk to you a little bit again about ATPCO's perspective on new distribution in the context of offer and orders. So my background, if you didn't hear from me yesterday, it's in revenue accounting originally. I'm one of those rare people that came from revenue accounting and moved up towards pricing and distribution. Taxes, sales data, and standards that cover airline product content. And we'll use the word interoperably a lot through this conference as well. I've been in the industry 30 years now, 10 with an airline and 20 with ATPCO. So again, these are some thoughts on NDC from an offer creation perspective and ATPCO perspective. So I thought I'd start with a narrative that I'm sure we're all aware of through the NDC journey, which is filed fares in regard to dynamic offers. And what does that mean? And what will that context be? And I think it's really worth noting at this point two things that we're especially seeing. One is that airlines that are implementing NDC and dynamic offers generally, for now, are showing high rates of growth in the data that they're making available to get out for pricing and shopping. And it's either to pick from more price points while science is performed internally, or their base prices to adjust from. A lot more on that in the dynamic offers sessions that you'll hear a little later on as well. I think it's also relevant that, and it's worth remembering that content includes things like taxes, fees, baggage, ancillaries, rich content, and brands. And of course, they continue to grow as well as airlines nuance their offers and move towards separating price from product and bundling as well. So I think it's good context in that sense that the story is evolving. So when NDC was new, I'm kind of thinking 12 or 13 years, but Keith, you might disagree with that. Maybe you're thinking a longer story of the API journey for Air Canada for sure. But But early thought was that airlines would fragment and that the ecosystem would lean away from what we would call the network effect. ATPCo's model is built around network economics. That basically means the more constituents within a utility, the more benefit everyone gets. What happened in practice is really rooted in the range of systems that ATPCo sources, that actually we're finding that the content is agnostic to distribution method or pricing method, which is a really interesting evolution, that network utility still works moving forward and in fact is growing. So we've seen pricing for new distribution leaning into that utility model, which is interesting to see, and stretching those capabilities as far as they can possibly go. So if you like, using the infrastructure that we have as an industry. NDC, of course, just one tool in the toolbox for airlines to get to the point of contextual dynamic offers as well and deepen that connection with the traveler. So some of the trends we've seen, just to get into, this is far detailed as I'll go into to ATPCO structures, but we've seen airlines using sales restrictions, category 15 we'd call that, and that would be to differentiate viewing, booking and selling of air products. The use of carrier imposed fees as a tool for channel differentiation, the use of generative artificial intelligence or Gen AI to generate more available content for pricing as well. So really new concepts, but applied to that architecture that we have. And the availability of more and more price points, as I mentioned, in the market as well, as airlines look to leverage new distribution to contextualize those offers that they have. So in terms of ATPCO and new distribution, that's really an extension. ATPCO typically is in the offer creation space, but we're looking to lean into the distribution side of things as well to see how we can leverage, again, that network effect to best value for the industry. And there's some healthy discussion there. We have a design team. I think I just saw Sheikh come in the room, but ATPCO has a design team for new distribution capability. It's very early days, but it's great to see that we have across a range of businesses, from airlines to channels to tech providers to industry bodies, all talking about how we might together move NDC forward at scale. So those meetings are happening. I know ARC held a meeting here as well, the NDC Advancement Group. So lots of good discussion at the industry level going on. And of course, for all of us, it's about moving forward together and scaling. So just to wrap up from ATPCO's perspective, we're focused on four key things, four key outcomes. One of them is enabling dynamic offers at scale. One is enabling NDC at scale, enabling attribute shop rather than a low price or low fare and schedule search, and then enabling seamless servicing and settlement, which again, you'll hear more about later on today. And that's really in the context of ATPCO's forever mission, that it's to optimize revenue for the industry, but lower the cost of distribution throughout the ecosystem as we move forward with that utility model. So that said, there's an very quick ATPCO context for you. Please have some questions ready, but for now, I'd like to hand over to Keith for an airline view on the same. Keith, all yours, sir.
Thanks, David. I'm glad you said an airline view. By no means do I presume to speak on behalf of all airlines, but to the extent that I can give you a perspective on what Air Canada thinks about all of these topics. And we were an early adopter of ATPCO technology and NDC, to be sure, and it has formed the basis of what we now have to date. So my background, just so you know, if I haven't had the opportunity to meet you before, my name's Keith Wallace. I've been in Air Canada for longer than I care to admit. It's been about 28 years, actually. Had a few jobs. I'm currently part of the customer digital distribution and payments team. So I guess in a nutshell, my friends and colleagues in the revenue management branch at Air Canada create a lot of wonderful products for our customers to experience. My job is to get that product out into the marketplace wherever our customers are in a seamless, kind of efficient way, and to help them purchase that in hopefully a frictionless way. So I have a lot of experience and a lot of opportunity to work with people in the industry to speak about NDC, and most recently to speak about offers and orders. I have had occasion to attend a number of events like this over the last few years, and honestly, it was like a bingo card. You couldn't go 5 minutes without hearing somebody say NDC. I would say that has changed actually recently. And in the last year, 18 months, we talk a lot less about it. And that may be indicative of the fact that in some ways, I would not say it's mature. I would say that it is maturing. And the industry is starting to focus much more on what we do with NDC technology versus NDC for technology's sake, hopefully. And now it is difficult to go 5 minutes at an event like this without talking about offers and orders. But I would say my experience, or at least when people ask me, why is Air Canada so passionate about NDC? Why do you invest so much time and money in building this and in going through the very painful transition process? They say, is it a cost savings effort? Is it a revenue generation effort? And every airline has their own strategy, and I will not critique any airline for what they are doing in this space. This is a difficult transition. But from our perspective, it's a little bit of both. It is probably more for us a third objective. It has certainly led to opportunities for us to decrease some distribution cost over time, and that is an excellent benefit. The long-term goal is absolutely to use NDC technology to put better product in front of customers and to grow revenue. In some ways, it is almost more important to us to put NDC out into the world and have people use it as a customer experience objective. We are innovating faster than we ever have in our history as an airline. The gap between the product we create and what customers experience in different channels is growing and accelerating, and that's not okay. The world has changed significantly, and customers are more omni-channel than they have ever been in their life. It is naive for all of us, in my opinion, to think that customers will experience your product in one channel and one channel only. Customers will talk to travel agencies. They will go online and open 14 different browser windows to shop because it's easy to do that. They will check airline apps. They will call, please don't call. They will call your contact center. Please don't call. But to think that customers will experience your product in one place, and the fact that there are differences across those channels is okay because they'll never see those differences, is not true. So it is incredibly important that as we innovate quickly as airlines in our mobile apps and on our websites, that we make sure that we're putting in place technology that allows customers to have that same rich experience if they do not choose to interact with us one of our own direct channels. And that is why NDC is so important. But it is really a stepping stone, and I'll take a second to talk about offers and orders. I had an opportunity with some colleagues of mine to talk to the Air Canada board about a couple of years ago about offers and orders and what it meant to Air Canada. And I'll tell you, it was 100% a revenue benefit. There are lots of benefits to offers and orders and doing it properly, but there was a very big revenue target that was put on the bottom right-hand corner of the last slide when we talked to our board of directors about what we wanted to do in this space. And I will tell you, the only reason I was there standing next to my colleague from revenue management is because our story was that number, you can get 50% of it if you continue on this path about innovating on .com and the mobile app. The other 50% you only get with a strong NDC technology and a strong NDC strategy. Because for the foreseeable future, half that revenue is going to come through a channel that is not an Air Canada not inside the Air Canada digital footprint. And if you want to get access to all of it, we need to dramatically upgrade how we interact with the rest of the ecosystem. And that honestly is the driving force behind our NDC technology now, but also around everything we're trying to do in incremental revenue and customer experience is trying to make Air Canada as much as possible a consistent omni-channel experience. To completely contradict me, I'll ask Paul to talk about what the agency experience is.
What doesn't work or what works?
Absolutely.
Where should I start?
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Paul Butcher. I lead the NDC program at Expedia. A little bit of history on me. I've been with Expedia for 26 years almost now, so from the very beginning, really. It's been quite a journey. For most of that journey, I've been in the flight space. We have our own offer engine, which we take ATP code data from to power. That I've been involved in all of the long history of producing flights for our customers in that journey. Before then, I was even in 1994. There's a company called American had. Actually, I'm surprised American didn't mention this yesterday because they were really the innovators of internet travel. In 1994, they had EasySaver, which was the launch pad on like Prodigy, America Online, for those of you that are that old that can remember that platform. For customers that are frequent flyers, to book travel, and I help build the operations center. So I've been doing this for near 30 years as well. So I wanted to give you, I came into the conference and I loved the theme of the whole story, right? Because I think NDC, for it to work, for offers and orders to work, you have to understand where we've come from, because all we're going to be doing is unwinding the past technologies, systems, and processes, and not just from an airline perspective or a PSS perspective, but the entire ecosystem. You know, how does everything from how does a schedule change work? If you talk to an airline, you'll get 10 different answers. If you talk to the PSS, you'll get a different set of answers. And what it means to the travel agency, you get a different set of answers. And there's a lot of that history that I think that is what is going to be important for us to understand to move forward. When I think to the first early days of when Expedia got involved with NDC, truly involved, not just like the kickoff 2012 meeting in Geneva. It was 2017. It's actually where I met Keith. He was chair of the board, and it was really to say, like, okay, I get you guys what you want to do, but let's start talking about the mechanics of what it's going to take to get there. And it was a very big realization to me is that for as much vision of what airlines wanted to do, I didn't think that they actually had the technical knowledge and understanding of that unwinding that needed to happen over the next 5, 10, 15 years to achieve that goal. And I think some of the problems that we're uncovering today around shopping and shopping volumes and how you do these different types of queries and personalizations, or a realization of, now that we've made a lot of progress, all of those things are starting to catch up to the industry. I remember some of the early conversations. Actually, what I loved about ATPCO, how they approached it, and we had meetings in DC around continuous pricing, dynamic pricing, is ATPCO did the exact opposite. They came back and they said, we're going to look at how does the entire system work on how we generate content, and how does that impact revenue management systems and the accounting systems, and let's make sure that what we're trying to produce is going to fit forward. One was 2020 objective. That was 2018.
Yeah.
That it came out, and I remember sitting and talking to Yannick. I'm like, look, I get that you guys want to move NDC forward. I get that there's an impetus, but I go, I am very concerned that if we move too fast with the capabilities that we have today across the value chain, that if some big event, and I was thinking like the Iceland volcano that shut down Europe for 2 months, if something like that happens today, I said, Yannick, everything is going to collapse because the systems and processes are not there today to handle it. I had no idea COVID was going to happen, but it was the realization of that, right? Is things broke, and there's a lot of things in NDC that wouldn't function, and it really froze a lot of the airlines and systems that had put a lot of effort into that process. So that was the bad side. However, when I go back and I look at it, had we not had that push, we wouldn't have made the progress. Had we not had COVID and that type of event, it wouldn't have accelerated actually trying to get the things done. Those gnarly problems that, like, there isn't a big ROI, there's no revenue generation, but they're the things that are important, especially to the travel agents who are interacting with the travelers day to day, that need to get done. So I actually have seen a tremendous amount of progress across the board, right? Everyone, the GDSs have come much, much further. The airlines are implementing a lot more of the technology. You're seeing a lot more adoption of all the things that have been promised are starting to happen, and it very much is an accelerating footprint. I think if you were to ask me today, what do I think about NDC and is it realizing the things that was proposed, I would say we're actually pretty far along. We've implemented it, we've got it at scale, and I would say actually NDC, for the majority of the use cases, actually works better than it does today in the legacy environment. The industry's made a lot of progress to move things forward. Our goal at Expedia is not to have customers know that it's NDC or GDS or whatever. It's to facilitate the process of working with our carriers to provide the customer the content that they want, because to Keith's point, they are omni-channel, they're going to be shopping around. So let's make sure that we can work together to produce the content, to facilitate the booking process, make the servicing process seamless. I love the airlines. Air Canada is one of them. United is one of them. Has a good omni-channel belief to NDC, so that when you've got a disruption, you can go to United and it will work. You can come back to the travel agent and you can continue to service. The types of APIs that they're producing are available to us. Like, that is a fantastic outcome. That is, we're just continuing to see benefits to the entire ecosystem. So I am personally very bullish about where we're going to be in the next 5 years, as like everyone starts to see the value and the reinforcing loops of the outcomes of those of that progress. So pass it on, Shelley.
Pass it on to me. Good morning, everybody. I'm Shelley Younger, and the airline retailing portfolio reports up to me at ARC, including the NDC product. I've been in the industry now, well, if I hear everybody say it, in like 27 years. 19 at ARC, a little over 19 at ARC, and prior to that with American Airlines. And it's truly amazing how much change has happened over the years and how that has accelerated over the last few years that I've seen. If I kind of go back to the beginning, I was part of the NDC effort from the very start. And when I look at it, it seems to me like an epic road journey. That is what I see NDC and airline retailing overall. So airline partners, from our viewpoint, are at different stages in this epic road journey. Some are just thinking about it, some have just started, some are on the path, some are much further down the journey. But while everyone's moving the same direction, there are different destinations, and even more importantly, what we see are there are different routes to get there. We also see some bumps in the road. People have to change direction. They have to bypass a roadblock. They sometimes even have to change maybe a little bit the destination or the route that they're going. But everyone is moving in that epic road journey towards modern retailing. And I would say kind of one of the takeaways that I would ask, if you leave with nothing else from an ARC perspective, is that we see ourselves as the connector in that journey. We're connecting people. We want to help bring people along the way, no matter where they are actually in that epic road trip. And what does that look like? Well, that looks like being able to transmit data to us in multiple ways. That looks like being able to modify payments if you want to. Do you want ARC to do the payment processing for you? Do you want to do the payment processing? So all kinds of options that we offer. Commissions, do you want to pay upfront commissions? Do you want the agency to interact with that commission or not? And more importantly is sort of the data side, being able to consolidate data in one place. And that's really where our importance comes in. Again, not just the connector, but smoothing that transition into NDC and modern retailing. And I would say when people ask me sort of, what is it that ARC sort of brings to the table here? And I would say that is the smoothing, the being able to accelerate NDC much faster. There's a single source for agencies and airlines to access data, whether that's NDC data, whether that comes through a direct API or an aggregator, or that's GDS EDIFACT data, because that is still going to be around for a little while, but we bring both of those together to help have a data repository, benchmarking. For the agency side, it's about reconciliation, customer invoicing, and all of that happens in one place. Today, we actually have 30 airlines that are sending us data, that are sending us NDC data, and over 800 agencies at any one given time that are participating in NDC data with us. And we have 20% of our transaction volume at ARC is our NDC Direct Connect transactions. And that's more than doubled from the previous year. So when I talk about sort of the acceleration, you kind of get that long pole. We've had a lot of customer interaction, and that covers both agencies and airlines. So we able to think about things that maybe folks haven't thought about before. And I will tell you, we do a heck of a lot of consulting and discussion before anyone actually even onboards. So we may have you think about something that you haven't thought about before. An example of that is agency authentication and accreditation. We actually have people come to us and they haven't thought about how they're going to actually authenticate a travel agency or validate a travel agency is ARC accredited. And so we help work them through that process, and we have a product to help do that. It's also been a really long-standing process in terms of agency validation in the GDS world. Well, airlines have to think about that differently, and that's one of the things we do is help them think about that differently. One of our things is sort of our mission is that we want to share what we've learned. We want to share best practices so that it makes it easier for the next airline that's coming on board. You teed this up pretty nicely, actually, David, and even Paul did, so thank you very much. But when I look at the epic road trip and the disruptions that are happening, because there are always going to be changes and disruptions. And the same is true with NDC and any massive change that's happening. And you may have read or heard that one of the biggest challenges that we've been seeing over the past couple of years is the ability to manage servicing and operational issues. And so last year, we stood up the NDC Advancement Working Group. It's affectionately called the NOG, although my team is probably going, oh no, Shelley, please don't say that. But we stood it up last year, and the key to that was bringing agencies, airlines, stakeholders from end to end, GDSs, aggregators, everyone from start to finish to talk about how can we set some best practices around some of these operational issues, like schedule changes, like debit memos, like what happens with an unused value. So that's, in fact, we just had a meeting here a few days ago with everybody in person. And I keep a lookout because you're going to see we're going to have some best practices that the group will put out later in the year. And I would say if I could kind of, one final thought is NDC is not the destination on this road trip. It's airline retailing, it's offers and orders. It's truly being able to get the product, the price to the customer at the right time. And that's actually the destination here, not just NDC.
Good point.
So again, our viewpoint from ARC. So now we're going to open it up for questions. And I think, David, you have a kickoff question, don't you?
I did, yeah. I was just, I'm assuming everyone can get into the event app, but I was just, we can't go back there, but hopefully you've been logging your questions for us. But yeah, I had one teed up for Keith, and actually it was from a conference I heard you speak at about 3 weeks back. It was so good I wrote it down. The point that I heard there, that I feel like you described the advancement of NDC at the time, if you like, we use the term offers and orders, but as sort of changing channel strategy for airlines, changing technology and changing retail practices for consumer shops. And it kind of takes me back to my early days of Direct Connect, and Shelley, you teed that up well, back in the 1990s, where we would put a green screen on travel agents' desk and they had the choice of input, which feels like a similar story, airline controlling the offer and and having a direct relationship with the consumer. But can you tell us a little bit, can you expand a little bit on those three things, how Air Canada's approached those three, and if you like, which one of those was the more challenging, where some of the pinch points
are? They've all been challenging. It became, we speak a lot about NDC as a complete wholesale change of the technology that the industry is using, and that is true. It is I wouldn't say that. It is largely a technology project, and that requires an investment from airlines to do that properly. It requires an investment from our partners, all of us on the stage, to do that properly, and it's going to take and has taken a number of years. What we realized quite quickly at Air Canada was this is much, much bigger than a technology project. That is one piece of it. There is a whole content strategy around it, a distribution strategy around it, a channel strategy around it. But I would say, to answer the last part of your question, the most difficult part of it has been kind of change management, process management, people management. The work that people do or did is going to change. They're going to do different kinds of work tomorrow. How they do it will change, and understanding people's roles and responsibilities in the broader ecosystem and how we work with each other was actually a massive change project inside Air Canada, but also between Air Canada and our partners, and those would be our agency partners, our industry partners that we work with. Every rock you turn over, there is another opportunity to do something differently, more efficiently. So we quickly had to kind of expand our footprint and talk about, sure, this technology project needs to run, but there are a lot of processes and people that need to do things differently as well at the same time. It has been a big change management effort, for sure.
Excellent, thanks. And it just feels like it's great advice for a room full of people, anyone approaching it new.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth that lesson that it isn't just a technology change. Thank you. Shelley, did you have a question too?
Kind of a follow-up to that. There are three pieces there that David kind of covered. But from one of the things that we bring together, along with some others in the industry, is sort of the data. How you use the data is changing what you're evaluating, and especially as we move to dynamic offers. Can you comment on the challenges around data as you move through the airline retailing changes?
Yeah, a kind of a late realization for us has been, well, there's data into the process and then data out of the process, right? So there's two opportunities here. We could continue doing things the same way in terms of creating product, which is creating lots of choice, lots of different product, and hoping that our customers find something in the product catalog that resonates with them, and they purchase. But using data and knowing what our customers want, we can do a couple of things. One, we can help direct their efforts through the product catalog to help them find the thing that we think resonates most with them and try and increase conversion. But you can also dynamically create some product if you understand what they're looking for, and if we have great data sources about what they have done previously, either in our ecosystem or somewhere outside the Air Canada digital ecosystem, you can help maybe create things that you wouldn't necessarily have static in your catalog for them. But that feedback loop has to happen. So although great data in helps you improve that process, feeding that data out into the world so that people can track on it, report on it, and use it to inform your future processes is important. So that age-old idea of data being kind of a virtuous cycle is really, really important.
Thank you. Kind of continue the data thing. Paul, you really have, honestly, world kind of class, huge amount of shopping data, a world-class consumer-facing platform. How has the airline created offers sort of changed the way you use data to improve your customer experience?
Well, if I were to look at it in today's world, it actually hasn't changed it all that much.
Okay.
I think we've got a pretty robust platform that is pretty agnostic to sort of what data comes at us. What I will say is that we're preparing ourselves more and more for the future where that is not going to be the same, right? So today, we don't have a lot of personalized offers. We don't have ways of knowing what the context was. And so if we do things about like caching or mining data to say like what do you want? How did you get it? Today, that data isn't available in any of the data that we get today. As that changes, I think how we use data to power sort of that data loop that Keith was talking about is going to change. So we're doing things today to prepare us for that eventuality tomorrow.
Do you see sort of a follow-up to that, Paul, is when do you see sort of the hump of true personalized offers coming? Are we 3 years away, 5 years away? And I'll probably kick Keith, gear up, because that's coming your way.
So I think that if you wanted to look at it on a singular basis, there are pieces of technology that says, hey, I can personalize if you tell me your frequent flyer number. That technology is actually not even new in terms of an idea. It's been there for a long time. I think that the challenge that the industry is facing is not around that. It's going to be around the scale of what it means to truly personalize. We as retailers want to be able to shop and offer you context to what personalize is. Like if I tell you as an airline that it's, I'm telling you, it's $100 and it's a great deal. If I don't know that it's actually only $101 out in the public,
That's
is
a
it
great
really?
deal.
Is it a great?
It's a great deal.
That dollar makes a difference.
Yeah, indeed. It's all of that sort of additional context building and figuring out how we're going to go about doing that at scale in a friendly way to the traveler, a friendly way to the travel agent, a friendly way to the airline partners is going to be a thing that actually slows down the ability to get to personalized offers, because everybody needs and wants that context. Any retailer is looking for that. Air Canada is going to want that. We as a travel agency are going to want that. So I think that's going to be the biggest barrier. I think that's probably three years away before I think that stuff is 3 to 5.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what the end looks like. We're actually starting to ask ourselves the question, is creating an offer for Paul versus Shelley versus David the right end goal? I don't know. We've started kind of toying around a little bit, honestly, behind the scenes on some of our digital channels about, if something as simple as, if your trip duration is plus over or under a certain amount of days, if you're one person in your party versus four people in your party, what can we infer about that? What segmentation can we create around that? And if we slightly change based on something as rudimentary as that, what you see on aircanada.com, does that increase conversion? And it does, actually. So there's lots of labs stood up inside Air Canada. We're starting to use a lot of our Gen AI partners, as David spoke about earlier, to figure out, do we put do we create personas, segmentation, whatever you want to call it, but how granular do you have to be to extract benefit? And if you create relatively specific sets of personas that you can put customers into categories, is that enough? Like, do I actually need to know that it's you, Shelley, or do I need to know that it's someone like you who has many of the same kind of desires and objectives for their travel experience? So I guess the long-winded answer is, I don't know if we're going to be truly personalized to that individual person, or if it actually is enough for us to just say, I know in general what you like, and I know what people who are like you like to travel, and we'll zero in on you that way.
Okay, thank you. Interesting answer. Yeah. We have a couple of questions coming in, and we've got 10 minutes left, so I want to go ahead and do that. So, Keith, I think this one's probably for you. Are you ready?
Sure.
How do you focus on the omni-channel perspective and at the same time maximize on cost-saving side using NDC without channel differentiation?
Okay, I think I get it. So look, I would say the cost-saving effort is something we try and really protect the rest of the world from. Like there is a cost to distribution, 100%. We will tackle it. We will always try and make it as efficient as possible. Will it ever be zero? No, there's a cost to doing distribution. And that is an effort for airlines to tackle in their own way. There are contracts you can negotiate. There are things you can do to deal with that. But I almost put that aside as a separate strategy that airlines need to tackle in their own way. Content differentiation for the sake of creating friction and pressure to address your costs, it kind of hurts everybody in the ecosystem. I think content differentiation happens because we're in a period of transition where not all channels are using the same technology. And I will tell you, the thing that we told our agency partners when we kind of relaunched our NDC efforts last summer was, there is already a gap between what Air Canada is offering in our digital channels and what you can sell to your customers when you're using legacy technology. I know the change we're asking you to make is going to be difficult and bumpy, and it's going to be uncomfortable for all of us, but it is incredibly important we do it now, because I know it's on our product roadmap. That gap is going to grow and grow and grow, and this is going to be so much harder to do in a year or 2 years or 5 years. So content differentiation is not, in my opinion, an effort to create the kind of change that you want to get as an airline to address your costs. You should do that anyway. It is a byproduct of the fact that we're moving ahead and we're in that transition period. And it's the reason NDC is so important, because if we don't have something like this, we are not going to be able to give our product out into the world in the same way that we do on our own digital footprint.
All right. David, this question is for you, but in all honesty, depending on how much time we have, I may have all, because there's a common theme here.
Sure.
But ATPCO has done an excellent job of embracing disruptive technology, despite the impact it may have on its core business. How has ATPCO inspired a culture of embracing innovation?
Oh, what a great question. Thank you for that. I love the idea that we've done an excellent job of it, so thank you for whoever ever asked that one. Yeah, I think there was a change in ethos when Alex Zoglin, our CEO, announced from the Elevate stage that we had 4 outcomes and we were tying our success to the industry. Mm-hmm. And it was really that mindset shift, and actually is pervasive through the organization now, that our key performance indicators that that go down to everyone in the organization relate to those 4 things that I mentioned. 8% dynamic offers, 80% NDC in the market, attribute shop, seamless service and settle. And it really had a way of focusing the mind around the business and what our mission really, what was good for the industry, how we can be better together and how we could drive it. So yeah, it certainly was a conscious ethos change, and I think it's been very successful through the organization, but we've had to embrace it internally as well.
And I'll kind of, go ahead.
Go
ahead.
ARC and ATPCO occupy a unique position in our industry. You sit at the center of what a lot of us do. You have pre-built connections to many of us, to all of us, in fact. You happen to have played a role historically that may become less important over time. The fact of the matter does not change. You sit at the middle of everything we do, and the change that agencies and airlines are trying to make, if we do it on a one-to-one basis, is going to take us forever. So in cases, Airline A and Airline B may choose to do some things differently. Some things we will want to do the same. And having people that sit at the center of our universe and facilitating that is so important. So the fact that you both have embraced change and found new ways to leverage your unique position is amazing and super important to help us accelerate what we're trying to do, I think.
Right. Thank you, Keith.
Well, I would sort of pop in there, similar to your answer, David, is we sit in a little bit of the same place. What we are going to do is going to change and adapt. And our focus is always on how do we make our airline and agency partners' journey easier? And that we're going to change with that. So it's like, how do you change the core of what you do? Well, that is just part of this business. And if you keep your eye on the customer, who your customers are and what they're doing, you along for the ride, right? You're trying to help them get somewhere. So change and innovation is, to me, not easy, but you know what your North Star is. As long as you keep your eye on that, that's what it's about.
Yeah. I want to say, I think it does. You mentioned Alex Zoglin, I think Lori at ARC.
Yeah.
They requires good leaders, and I actually think that both these companies are well positioned in that respect. People follow leaders. Anyone can say if we're going to do these things, but if you don't have the right people to move your organization through it, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And keep pushing it.
Yeah.
Keep pushing the boundaries. And obviously both Alex and Lori have done that. We actually only have about 2 minutes left. So I'm going to round this out and close us out with, I'm looking to each of you to give me a parting quote. Paul, I'm going to pick on you first.
Unwinding legacy is going to be hard. It's going to be a journey.
Not to demotivate anybody, but if you haven't started, you're late. But there's still time.
Yeah. David.
So I'd say we at ATPCO firmly believe that the most efficient path to the end is through the middle. So leverage the infrastructure that you have, the collaboration structures that you've seen, conferences like this, but lean on collaboration, and we can get there better together.
And I would probably reiterate what I said just a few minutes ago, is sort of keeping the North Star there, utilizing your partner's knowledge, other people in the industry's knowledge. Don't always try to go it alone. We see that happen where everybody's sort of in a silo. So get out of that silo, leverage your partners. Okay, with that, we're literally at the end of our time. I want to thank you all for joining us here. We really appreciate it. And Keith and Paul, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.